Yes, I love this land. It takes my breath away.
Welcome back to Texas 10. I'm Melissa.
I'm hungry, Steve.
Well, today, Steve, I think actually I might make you hungrier with this episode. But if you've been following us at all, we love everything Texan. And as you also know in Texas, it seems like around every corner you meet someone, you find out they're your cousin. You know, or they say your cousin twice removed. I don't even know what that means. But today we have a dear friend, Stan Copeland. And he is my cousin, a distant cousin. In fact, we didn't know we were cousins until he came to our church. He was called to our church in Dallas, Lovers Lane United Methodist Church. And my dad called me and said, "Have you met your preacher?" And I said, "Not yet." And he goes, "Well, he's your cousin." So we are so excited to have you, Stan. Welcome.
Thank you. I've been really excited about being with y'all.
Well, this is great because, you know, a little while ago we moved to Waco, so we didn't show up at Lovers Lane as much. But on occasion, we would peek our head in. You did such an awesome job with that church, first of all. And recently, that was the end of your formal pastoring journey, right?
That's right. I retired July the 1st of this year. After 27 full years, I was into my 28th. I was appointed there on April Fool's Day, 1998.
We were there.
I remember that. I'll never forget that.
All right. And so just a real quick background. Before Lovers Lane, where were you at?
I was in Tyler, which that's the area where my wife and I both kind of grew up in that area. I was in a rural town just outside of Tyler.
Well, to name the rural town.
That's right. It was Chandler, Texas.
Chandler, Texas. That's,
Yep.
you know,
That's
never
our
been there,
heritage.
but that's where my dad is
That's
from
right.
as well. So hence the connection.
Right. And it is a great little town. But what, about 10 miles from Tyler, would you
About
say?
10 miles.
Right. Okay. And it's in a, as most East Texas is, it's in a very lush setting. You have the lake pretty close to it,
yeah.
and you've maintained ties to that, even pastoring out for a long time in Dallas, right?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, we bought some land adjoining my parents' 60 acres. We bought 60 acres back some years ago. So
Great.
the land is pretty important to us in that it was actually bought by my great-grandfather for my great-grandmother, because just over the fence was the Fitzgerald property. And she was the oldest daughter in the family. But, of course, when the land came down, it went to the boys.
Right.
So her husband, Rasmus Cade, what a name. He bought this 60 acres that adjoined her home place, so she would have, that close proximity to where she was born and reared. And he planted pear trees that are still producing today. In fact, I've made pear preserves off of those pear trees with my great niece. So, generations of pear history.
So that kind of brings us to, we all keep up with each other on Facebook and all that.
Right.
And all of a sudden something pops up and it's the Picklin Parson. And Stan has kind of gone back to his roots through food and cooking and the land. So tell us a little bit about how the Picklin Parson came about.
This is a strange story, but it did start with...
I've heard you tell many strange stories, so this is not surprising to me.
I do, but it has a twist to it that is important, which is actually where the name came from. But the pickling part of that started, my parents lived out on the farm and their house burned. And they were in Dallas visiting us when it burned to the ground. They lost everything in the home. They had lots of treasures and relics and things like that. And so we moved them into town, and that particular July, before their home was rebuilt by their grandson, who's an architect, the fig tree on the farm was loaded with figs. So I had never pickled anything in my life. And my mother, who was pretty compromised physically with Parkinson's, she was still up and about and sassy. So I said, "Mom, let's make some of your grandmother's lemon figs. And she said, okay. So we got the recipe out, and she was kind of coaching me through it. And I made the recipe, and they tasted good, and she was so happy, and I saw the joy in her face. And so a week later, a cousin of mine, and of course of hers, first cousin of hers, sent us some sweet pickles that my great-great-grandmother had made, her great-grandmother, and they were called Virginia Chunk Sweet Pickles. And so I said, well, we did the figs. That was good, so I'll do the pickles. So I followed the recipe and did the pickles. It took like 12 days to make these pickles. They have to brine for 7 or 8 days, and I did it the old-fashioned way.
Did you do this in your kitchen in Dallas?
In Dallas.
And so Tammy's all cool with you?
Not
just
cool, but she allowed it.
This was negotiated.
That's right. But the thing that happened in that kitchen was after those sweet pickles were made, and Mom approved, but more importantly, our 2-year-old granddaughter, Claire Bear, she took a bite of one of those pickles and she said, yummy, these my favorite. And she would have probably eaten the whole jar.
Right. That's a good housekeeping seal of approval when you get a 2-year-old to buy off to food.
That's right. So that got me interested. So the next year I entered the fair, and I think I won an honorable mention ribbon.
At the State Fair of Texas,
State Fair of
right?
Texas. And then at the East Texas State Fair, I did real well. And so the Picklin bug had bit. And I had seen my grandparents and great-grandparents and great-great-grandmother actually do this pickling and canning. And I started getting in touch with the food preservation and kind of getting back to some older ways and what those were saying to me and my soul. And it was speaking to me. Mm-hmm. But I got kind of concerned about all the divisions that we were facing in the country back along that time, and wanted to do some videoing that basically confronted some of the divisions. I've got kind of a saying these days says, do no harm, but take no bull. And so
I like that.
So that's a great saying. I've never. Okay. Side note: you need to copyright that. Okay.
And the other part of that is do good and call out bad. Right. And so, with that kind of overdrop, not getting into church or national politics, there was plenty of subject, but it dawned on me that I needed an alias of sorts. And so that's when Picklin Parson came to be.
I like it.
And so the videoing, I would video these that had some humor, but were pretty pointed too. And then at the end, when, it's Picklin Parson coming to you, I'm Stan Copeland, the Picklin Parson, it causes people to smile. This is what's going on here.
It made me smile. I said, hey, Steve.
It is a standout thing. It jumps out at you.
It's a disarming kind of thing. But that was years ago, and the name just has continued. And I've written 3 cookbooks under the Picklin Parson and told a lot of stories related to our heritage in rural Texas. And some of these recipes go way back, as I've already said. And so it just became a thing. I did one related to a trip to Alaska and talked about the environment because fish have quit swimming up the Yukon River, the salmon have. And there's a lot of reasons for that. It's not just one simple reason that you can say, and that's it. And the second book I wrote was actually telling stories of church members like Sam Rachel, whom you know, who one of our special needs kids, and we named a pear butter after Sam because his hair's orange.
I can see it. I can definitely see it.
And he loves Mr. Incredible, whose hair is orange. So I said, I think I can turn that pear butter orange with a little turmeric coloring. So sure enough, we did it at a state fair.
Wow.
Blue ribbon.
All right.
Wow.
Well done, Sam.
And last year, one of our kids, who was at the Dallas Bethlehem Center in South Dallas, did a very similar recipe. He won a blue ribbon last year. So that was kind of a hit. But that particular cookbook featured people and their stories, and it was written during COVID, and it was called when you're in a pickle. You know.
So let me
Life
ask, before we get to, are these books available? Can people get on
Oh
Amazon?
yeah, they're available. We've got a website that.
Well, what's the
or you can get
website?
them on Amazon or whatnot, but it's
What's your website?
PicklinParson.com.
Okay.
Okay.
right.
So did you have to bid on that, or was that open when you looked?
It was wide open.
Really?
believe it.
That's okay. That's interesting.
So
That's,
it's very original.
right.
This
Or
was
it's
before
come-
pickleball.
Okay. That's true.
If I'd have
That's part of
waited a
that.
couple of years, it would have been a lost cause.
So you mentioned kids. So you started enjoying this tradition of pickling and canning, and which we don't do much anymore. And it really does take you back to your roots. But you mentioned kids. So are you just doing it by yourself, or now who are you including?
Yeah. Now I include kids, but you know, like my son said, Dad, why are you doing this pickling and canning? Don't you have a freezer? So in a sense, you know, there is why do you do this?
Right.
Big why. And so I started thinking about kids and all of this stuff that has us so divided in the world. How it'd be to get kids together around the creative art of pickling and canning and entering their creations in the state fair. So we started in our kitchen with 6 kids, and Tammy did say, "This is the last year we're doing it in the kitchen." But it was successful.
Okay, Tammy is not here to defend herself,
No.
so I want to say that Tammy is a wonderful, wonderful person. She was the person behind you or beside you for all of those years and all your successes, and she keeps a beautiful house.
She
Yes.
does.
Okay, and she's justly proud of it. So Tammy, it was okay to say that, but go ahead.
That's right. And she was very helpful, as we had some other adults who were very helpful, because corralling 6 kids and doing 3 recipes a day for 4 days. The camp was 4 days. We call them jamming and gelling camps.
How fun.
And so we put their entries in the State Fair of Texas, and in the North Texas State Fair in Denton, and in the West Texas State Fair in Abilene. And in the State Fair of Texas, they don't have a youth division for canning. They have it for everything but canning.
Well, that's wrong.
Well, it is, but I can't imagine a lot of kids canning. I mean,
Now we can.
Yes.
There are getting to be more than you'd think. In fact, I entered 29 recipes in the last couple of days in the State Fair of Texas, all made by kids. And so after that first year, and they did win a couple of ribbons in the state fair, but in the regional fairs, they just cleaned house. And then last year, we had a camp at the church in North Dallas, Lovers Lane United Methodist, and then we had a camp at the Dallas Bethlehem Center, which is in South Dallas, actually in a food desert. And so we had kids from there and kids from North Dallas mixing together, and I thought, now this is it right
That's
here.
cool.
This is what we want. And they became quick friends around the task of pickling and canning, and they did such a good job. I think last year they won probably over 20 ribbons, fair ribbons.
and there's nothing more Texan than the state fair. And if you have never been to the Texas State Fair, it's worth a trip to Dallas. And it's not just about the rides and all of that and the fried everything,
Yeah.
but they have all of these halls, like, and they have, like, stand there at the pickling, you can see quilts, cars. It's just really a cool venue. So I think it's just really great that you entered and that you got kids to enter.
So I want to go back a little bit to something you said, the sort of the why when you first got doing it, and it obviously had a connection to your family, your heritage.
Yeah.
Did you feel? I mean, does that like spiritually connect you with the? How does that work when you're doing the thing that your ancestors did? Well, how do you think that feeds into that?
Yeah. Well, it does feed into that. It's something about kind of feeling a sense of nurturing or tending to your soul. I just wrote a book about my retirement and talked about what I'm going to be doing in my next. And the book is called Farewell, Tending to a Soul. And so I get into that with that book. I get into the fact that connecting to your ancestry and connecting to the land and connecting to practices that were rural and our little hometown church related, a lot of them. It's really something that that really does sink pretty deep. In fact, I've got a new slogan with a friend of mine who has some of the same interests in what we call home placing, not homesteading, but home placing.
Okay.
Not quite as radical, but some of the same, ideas. But it's called be a good ancestor. Think about that.
Right.
Are we all trying to be a good ancestor? And if we are trying to be a good ancestor, doesn't that kind of straighten up some of the things that we do when you start thinking about it's not just about me, it's about what I pass on?
Okay.
One would hope.
All right. So, so when I hear about it, I think immediately of the preservative effects of it. But you're talking a lot about recipes and your great-grandmother's or your great-great-grandmother's recipes and these kids' recipes and whatnot. So for the uninitiated, tell us a little bit about how the food tastes differently if you
Pickle it.
pickle it on your own terms versus buying, as Zach, your son, would have it, just out of the freezer or the grocery store.
Steve buys a lot of sweet pickles, so I need to get connected with
Okay,
him.
all right.
I wish I'd have known that. Yeah, it's it starts with fresh. I've got a pretty big garden. I'm gonna have a bigger one next year, and so and I also have a little store in my hometown that has sold fresh produce for the last 8 years. So when you start with fresh and you preserve fresh, it tastes better than what you would, get in a store, I believe. And of course, some of that's bias that comes about by having made it, and all the connections that you brought up earlier. It just seems like I call it jars of goodness, in that sense. So, there's two different kinds of canning, basically. There's the water bath canning, which is what you do when you use a vinegar or you're doing jams or jellies with sugars and all of this. And the water bath canning doesn't get as hot as the pressure canning, which is what you use when you pressure can meats or fish or vegetables that don't have acid. Then you have to get it hotter for longer under pressure, and that kills all possibilities of bad things like botulism.
Okay, well,
That would be good.
That's good.
But the acid also reduces botulism. But you don't want everything pickled. Some things you want to just can. And that becomes something that in South Dallas at the Bethlehem Center, the grandmothers who were coming, watching their grandchildren pickle and can, they said, we want to do one of these. And I said, well, we're going to do one with pressure canning. And you can put carrots and potatoes and stew meat and put it in a quart jar and put it in a pressure canner and pressure can it for an hour or more. And then you've got a stew in a jar, and you put that on the counter, and you can eat that through the year. So,
well, it's kind of a lost art.
It is.
And so I love that you're bringing that back. And as you said, I love that you're using your family recipes. I think that's awesome.
So do the cookbooks, do they tell you how to do this, or do you have to get a canning book and then,
yeah, it tells you how to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, and with the jamming and gelling classes, we send them home with a little mini canner and tease their parents about, hey, go home and make some jelly.
And they're like, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. But yeah, it's the cookbooks do explain how to do it, and there are other good resources out there online and otherwise that are pretty explanatory. It's not rocket science for sure.
Well, but you said you really hadn't done it until your parents had the fire and all that. So you picked this up later in life, right?
Oh yeah, I picked it up. It was 2018 when I did the
So
figs.
I know you have that cool little country store. I don't know if you still have it in Chandler.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So now, do you sell any of your product in it? I mean, you
we
know, you
do.
probably sell your books, but what about your
No,
pickle
nearly
can?
everything we sell in there we make now. It's proprietary. But
Just like HEB, you're going to the vertically integrated store.
well,
It's-
speaking of HEB, last year Central Market bought about 750 cases of our product.
that is
Wow.
awesome.
And so, yeah, we got real excited about that. So our kitchen's quite capable, but we've changed something in the kitchen that is part of my heartburst, part of what I want to do next. We have a nonprofit called Picklin with Purpose. And during COVID, the church, through some contacts that I had with produce vendors, started a food ministry that was pretty substantial, feeding about 3,000 people a week. And
Wow.
and I started saying, you know, if the need is so intense in the city, what's it like in our rural area?
Sure.
It was just as great. And so
But sometimes without the infrastructure to address it.
exactly. And so we got this idea that we would work. There are 5 food pantries in that eastern part of our county, and that we would work with the food pantries, and they would, in essence, you know, they vet the people who come and participate in their food ministries. And so we gave them a little token that said Picklin Parson Food Club. They bring the token to the store because the food pantries don't do fresh. They do, you know, canned goods,
Right.
dry goods, staples. And so they bring it down to the store, and they sign up for the Picklin Parson Food Club. And then they can shop for $5. They can get $30 worth of fresh produce of their choice that they can cook or eat. And so the food pantry said, this will be great because we can't do we don't have a way to handle that, and we do. And so Picklin with Purpose contracted with the store to administer it. And the pantry said, you may have as many as 150 families. Well, over 500 families.
Wow.
Wow.
And to see people come in and, you know, pay their $5.
Right.
It's what we call a dignity model because they're actually paying for the produce, but they're getting what they want fresh. The pantries, most of them are just once a month. And so, you know, it's limited what they can get there. But there are a lot of pressures on particularly some of our older families, single moms, a lot of the children. We teamed up with another ministry called Bare Necessities. The high school I went to, their mascots, the Bears.
Yeah, the Brownsboro. Yeah.
Bears. And so
We have a letter jacket in our hallway of a old Browns. My father-in-law,
My dad.
Russell's, was
No,
basketball.
actually, no, his was Chandler.
Oh, he
When
was
they still
Chandler.
had Chandler
That's
High
right.
School.
Yeah, you're right.
Sorry.
okay. Yeah.
But my granddad did build the wall there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, this Bare Necessities, basically with the school, they would pack, you know, snacks basically for the kids to take home for the weekend. Most of these kids were on the lunch program. And so they contacted us, could you put some fresh produce in here? We said, we sure can. So we provide fresh produce for the Bare Necessities program, and they put them in. I think this year they're doubling the number. It's over 200 sacks that they send home on the weekends, and we provide the fresh part of that.
That
so
is great.
it is good, and it's you know, it's dealing with the challenge of food insecurity is real, and it's likely to get worse,
Right.
especially related to children,
Right.
and, with the cutbacks and things like that.
And it does seem like the default is to find a bag of Fritos or whatever,
Right.
and
Right.
just the idea that you can have fresh.
Yes.
you say, that is that just has to make an immense difference nutritionally, and I think maybe obviously short-term nutrition, but long-term nutritionally, because if you get in the habit of just always eating Fritos, and I love Fritos and Frito pie, but if that's all you ever eat and you forget to eat fresh, it will catch up to you
Well,
in the
there's
end.
just such an expense. I mean, I'm the head of a school, and we stopped providing snacks during the day, and the parents bring it because we couldn't afford
Right.
quality.
No, this is a tuition-based
Yeah, this is a
school.
tuition-based school. So, so you keep talking about your kitchen and stuff. Do you have a commercial kitchen now that you're working out of, and where is that?
Yeah. We have a commercial kitchen at the store downtown
In
Chandler.
Chandler.
But I'm building a commercial kitchen out on the farm. I've got a smokehouse, a real smokehouse out on the farm, and we've got a big smoker and all of these cooking entities. And in order for all of that to be certified, you have to have a commercial kitchen. So I've got a little building that we're turning into a commercial kitchen. So we'll have a backup kitchen if we get a big order from a customer.
Now,
And all these kitchens are thanks to Tammy kicking me out of the kitchen. Right?
She is all far kitchens away.
Okay.
No matter where they are, she's all for.
now let's talk about where Chandler is. It's on Highway
31.
31. I always get that
31.
wrong. 31.
31.
So if you're driving, and Chandler is between Athens and Tyler, and you drive through Chandler, and there is a stoplight. Actually, I think there's more than one right now. Is there more than one?
Still one, but there's one coming.
Okay.
But if you turn right at the one that there is, you'll find Stan's store. And what's the name of it?
Stillwater Farm Market Store. And Stillwater Farm was what Chandler was named as a community before it became Chandler in
I
1880.
know that.
So
That's
A little history,
Little history.
little bit of history
Well,
there.
it's in what was downtown Chandler. I mean, I remember before the big tornado, it kind of wiped it all out. But you've got this great little fresh produce store. It's not just fresh produce. It's, I don't know. I think we got pecans there that were really
lots
good
of
ones.
pecans,
Yeah.
yeah.
But you should definitely pull off the highway if you're driving
31.
and go see it.
And so again, if you're on 31 between Athens and Tyler, there's 12 good convenience stores where people pull off and get Snickers and whatnot. And if you don't have gas pumps, right?
No.
So if you gotta fill up, I understand that. But the sort of the ethic of our show here is you don't always pull off in those places. You pull off and you find Stillwater Farms, and that's. So
Go to the local businesses.
Yeah,
There's a
Yeah.
great museum in Chandler.
Yes.
That is the Ralph Yarborough
Yes.
birth house.
Right.
And it's now part of a
It's a
museum
beautiful
area.
little park. They
It is a
moved his
park,
house,
yeah.
and I can remember driving down, going to the cemetery,
Yeah.
and passing his house. And my dad
Yeah.
would always show me his house, and my dad's got a picture in the
right.
museum.
But
so-
it is also right off 31.
Yeah.
That's
So-
right.
Yeah, and
That's
it's
right.
like I said, it's a beautiful stop for kids. It's a beautiful park, and you can go to the museum and then go down a little further and go get some snacks, and it's great.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I love this story of kind of bringing back the past and bringing it to our future, and I love your thought about thinking about the kind of ancestor you're going to be. I just love that.
So I have a question because I don't know if I'm a big Barry Levinson fan. His movies, I love them. And Avalon is one of them. And it actually follows a family's history in Baltimore. And it starts at the outset of the movie. It's the large extended family, all living in the same neighborhood, doing a different Jewish tradition, but doing the sorts of things that you're talking about. And as time progresses, we narrow down, and it ends in at the end with one of the protagonists eating a TV dinner, sort of with the couple people in the family just watching the TV, right? Instead of having the big Sunday dinner with all of it. And it says to me that you're fighting a losing battle. Right? Okay? That it is so hard in our society. And now it wouldn't even be watching the TV, it'd be watching the phone, right? Okay. So are you an optimist or a pessimist that the sorts of things that you're talking about can make and will make a difference in people's lives?
I'm an optimist in that, and the reason I talk about home placing, not homesteading, is because I do think homesteading in that more rigorous way of doing things on the farm is pretty remote to most folks. I think of my grandchildren who are urban. My kids are urban. They grew up, a son and a daughter, 6 years apart. They grew up in Houston and Dallas. They're very urban. But I want to create an attraction to the farm so that my grandchildren will say, there's something different we can't get in the city. We can go pick zucchini in the garden, which they did this year. It was like hunting Easter eggs and put them in a big swimming pool that we bought for $5 at the Dollar General. They washed them, and I kept them pretty occupied for a while. But just creating a place where you can slow smoke meat, and country hams take about 11 months to completely cure. But that too is pickling. Curing of meat is a form of pickling, and so all of that theme is what I hope that I can create. If it's only for me and connecting to the things that I want to do, that's one thing. But
you're being a good descendant there.
That's right. But I do think that it's something that that folks start realizing that there is something about fresh. There is something about this God-given earth and creation that we have that we need to protect and we need to take care of. And if that gets old, we're all in trouble.
Right.
I just got back from a trip to one of my heroes, Wendell Berry, who is an author who writes a lot about going back to old ways. He's a New York Times bestseller. He's written dozens and dozens and dozens of books. But he's really prophetic in a lot of what he says, I think, in that we take too much for granted in a fast-paced world, and we need to slow down. And the pickling and canning is kind of the symbol of that slowing down and enjoying, what our ancestors, what our family have to offer, what our now family has to offer, and to see if you can engage in some of that together.
And bringing people together, to do something together, and then conversation's going to be coming out, and you're teaching each other something. The younger is learning from the older. I just love it.
Well, so I was thinking of our daughter Kelsey. She has a wellness place, and she's rigorous about limiting screen time for young children, and that, frankly, sometimes that can be a challenge if you're out of practice with little ones or whatnot. And just the idea of hunting zucchinis or spending some time with your hands on something for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds, as opposed to being on the phone. That seems like a great grandparenting tip to me.
Well, I want to bring you to my school.
Right.
We're starting a garden this year, so off camera, we're going to talk about what we need to do and how fun would it be for you to come, because we have a big kitchen, and you could, work with the kids to take what they've grown. And we might have to buy some supplements, but
always do a little of that.
Right.
I would love to do that. That's this weekend I actually was with a Boy Scout troop, Troop 800. We've been planning this for a while, and so Friday night they were doing a lock-in basically at a church in North Dallas, and so I talked to them about pickling, canning, and they looked interested. They were faking it, maybe. But the next day,
kids will surprise you.
They will. We took watermelon, and I said, we're going to have at this watermelon. We're going to peel this watermelon. We're going to cut up the rinds and make watermelon rind pickles, and we're going to take the meat of the watermelon and we're going to puree it, and we're going to make jam with tahine in it for the jam. So watermelon tahine jam, and the juice we're going to strain, and we're going to make some of the most beautiful jelly you've ever seen. So I hope that it taught those kids that you can preserve this food. This watermelon just became 50 jars of goodness.
Did they enjoy it? I mean, what was their reaction?
They had a ball, and I think it shocked everybody involved, including their adults.
and I mean, they had to be so involved. So were they checking their phones or anything, or were they just completely turned in?
They were completely honed in. It was a 3-hour event, so we did all of that in 3 hours.
Wow.
And so they had to be attentive, and of course you have to think through 3 patrols. So we had 3 different things they were making. So you have to keep the kids busy, but that's not too.
She can amen that.
That's not too hard when you're real active preparing the fruit.
All right, so what? We're always wondering what our kids' birthday party's going to be. pickling parties.
Let's have a Picklin Parsons.
Pickling
Scotty
parties.
might be, well, I don't know. How young did you start that first group? What was the youngest kid?
The youngest kid, last year we had a 9-year-old, and she won the grand champion for her. I think it was a strawberry jam or something, but she won the grand champion at the North Texas State Fair. And we had a special needs kid, Emerson is his name, and he won the reserve grand champion. Yeah.
That's amazing.
The little girl is 9. Emerson he was 14 at the time. But Emerson won a blue ribbon at that same fair the last year with strawberry rhubarb jam. So this year, I said, what do you want to make? He said, strawberry rhubarb jam, Pastor Stan. I said, no, you can't make the same thing. He said, how about raspberry rhubarb jam? I said, we'll do it. And that's what he won his reserve grand champion with. And this year, pineapple rhubarb
It's
jam.
the rhubarb.
And it's good. It's going to win. I know it is. But it's just it's so cute to see the kids get real excited about creations like this. And I like at the state fair they call it creative art, and it is a creative art. It's an art that I know there's a whole lot more youth entries at the state fair this year than there's probably been maybe ever, because we put in 29 ourselves.
So when you do that, you are creating some recipes then. I mean,
yeah.
because
In fact,
you've started with your ancestors,
Right.
your old recipes that got handed down to you, and now you're comfortable just kind of coming up with things?
Yeah, coming up with them. And with the internet these days, you can Google anything and there's all kinds of recipes. But you take a base of a recipe and you make it your own. And the kids really like that, because you give them a base of a recipe and one was going to make black and blue jam with blueberries and blackberries, and he said, but I like cherries. How about red, black, and blue jam? I said, that's good.
Right.
And, it was a winner. And it was a winner.
That actually sounds very good.
It was good. I can attest to it. But it's just fun to be with the kids, and for them to be with one another and be working with one another, because they do have to team up on the recipes.
Have you done any
projects.
intergenerational cooking?
Yeah, we have. There's always plenty of volunteers helping
Right.
us.
But
So
I mean, I just think I immediately go to seniors and kids and a way to bridge that gap.
Yeah, 2 years ago, our school, they're fourth graders, partnered with Wesley Community Center in Dallas, which is largely a Hispanic ministry. And there were, I think there were 22 kids and 22 senior adults who mostly spoke Spanish. And I taught them how to make strawberry jam. And they each had tables. There were, as I recall, there were 12 or 13 tables. And so they made a portion of the larger recipe at their tables. And then we combined it all together and we cooked it. And before they left, they had everybody had a jar of strawberry jam. So that was fun, and of course everything I said and taught had to be interpreted into Spanish. So, and the grandparents and the kids, they just, it was magical the way they started, becoming friends in a 3-hour time slot.
People become friends over food.
They
do.
No question.
And lots of laughter, lots of joy. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we are thrilled to have the Picklin Parson here. Now you see him, and so
Let's go over the
Yes.
handles again. So it's Stillwater Farms, right off 31. What's the street that you turn right on?
it's Broad Street, but it's
Okay.
actually 315 that goes down to the lake.
Okay. All right. So if you're 31 headed towards Tyler, you turn right on Broad Street /315. If you're coming from Tyler, you turn
Right.
left.
Right.
That's Stillwater Farms. And then if people want to order books or learn a little bit more about it, it's
PicklinParson.com.
Okay.
And all of our proprietary products and books and things like that are there.
all right. So, and Tammy is happy that you're out of the kitchen and
She's out of the kitchen. I want to say one more thing about cookbooks.
okay.
The next cookbook coming out is going to be recipes that kids make.
oh, I
And
love
so
that.
all of these recipes that they've made over the last 3 years, I'm going to try to put them all together, along with a wonderful story of a woman in the church I served for 27 years. She's got 16 grandchildren. And part of their tradition in their household was spicing around at Christmas time. And so they'd put down a 25-pound round of beef into a crock to cook it. I'm not going to go into all the details, but it's involved. But all 16 of those grandchildren have spent a day out of school to help her put down the round. And then 3 weeks after that, they finish cooking it and they serve it at Christmas. And that's a tradition.
What a great story.
And so the cookbook will feature, family traditions and children's recipes. And so I can't wait to get it.
Sign me up for a copy.
So what do your grandkids call you?
Pop.
I love that. And what do they call Tammy?
They call her Sugar. So we're Sugar Pop.
Sugar Pop. Love it.
And it's probably right. That works.
Right, it does. Right.
Well, thank y'all so much.
We're so glad to have you. It's so good to have you here. Well, keep joining us on Texas 10. Join us for our culture segments like this, our travel segments. Go to all of our social media. Follow us on YouTube. It's Texas 10, TEN. And just come and, like we said, get out and go to these towns and learn more about Texas and do something with your kids and your grandkids, because that's kind of the Texan way, right?
That is. This has been a very Texan episode. Stan, thanks again. Make sure you tell somebody about Texas 10. Word of mouth is always the best. Thanks so much.
And I love this land. It takes my breath away. From the Palo Duro to the Gulf Coast plain, from the heart of the hill country to the piney wood shade, I love this land. It takes my breath away.